Good morning and Happy New Year. Professor Sahasrabudhe, Chairman AICTE, Professor Rajan Saxena, and distinguished Vice Chancellors and Directors of universities and various B schools. We are passing through a very critical phase. And in this phase, this higher education is also making a transformation. And particularly this management education, this is also making a complete change from this face-to-face learning to a kind of this blended learning. And we have seen that this new education policy that has given us a lot of hope and lot of aspiration that this new education system whatsoever is emerging, this is going to be in a very right direction. This policy see independent and self-governed higher education institution with capable and ethical leadership as a driver of education change. This policy also see that all higher education institutions to become autonomous and self-governing entities. And here these higher education institutions to be governed by independent board with the complete academic and administrative autonomy. This will do the consolidation of current almost 1,000 universities and more than 40,000 colleges into about 15,000 large and well-resourced, vibrant, multidisciplinary institutions. And also, there is a transformation of all these institutions in a form of research universities, teaching universities, as well as autonomous degree. There is also a provision that how and in what manner there is going to be effective and enabling and responsible regulation to encourage excellence and public spiritedness in higher education. There is a talk of setting up this National Higher Education Regulatory Authority, only one regulator for all higher education institutions, including professional education, where management education is very, very important. University Grant Commission is to be transformed into higher education grant councils. And also there is a talk about that there is a new general education council to develop the national higher education qualification framework. Accreditation has also given a lot of emphasis, and there is going to be accreditation on a basis for regulation, National Assessment and Accreditation Council, which is going to oversee and develop an ecosystem of accreditation institutions. And also there is a emphasis that how there is going to be a wider involvement of state government. So then there is a talk that State Council of Higher Education facilitate peer support and best practice sharing, and there is going to and State Department is going to be involved at a policy level. And there is a what is most important point that there is a common regulatory regime for public and private institutions. We can see that certain other innovative changes, this choice-based credit system, internationalization of education, open and distance education, this is also going to be expanded. This affiliating university and this affiliation context from the context of this policy framework, this is also going to be eliminated over the period of time. So with these kind of this revolutionary changes, we all are waiting that what is the roadmap and how this is going to be implemented. And accordingly, the kind of this vision, mission, and specifically in this multidisciplinary institution, when we talk about stand-alone institutions, the institutions, PGDM institutions, so means that how these are going to be benefited by these kind of changes. Again, a very innovative changes that how this technology, this is going to be an enabler, as well as this National Research Foundation, which is going to provide huge support to both public as well as private institutions for the development of research, for this industry interaction. So this policy definitely has envisaged very revolutionary changes for the for the positive direction of management education as well as this higher education. With these words, we are more patient to listen from Professor Sahasrabudhe, because he is one of the main architect of this policy, as well as he is also going to frame the rules regulations for the growth of higher education in this country in a very effective manner. So with these words, on behalf of VC councils and AIMA, I would like to welcome all the distinguished members in this council. And this session we have planned in question answers mode, conversation mode. So there is a complete freedom to raise your issues either in chat box as well as directly to Professor Sahasrabudhe. So then you can get the benefit of his presence. Thank you very much.
Now I request Dr. Rajan Saxena to say a few words and introduce our keynote speaker.
Thank you very much, Soumya, and thank you very much, Dr. Agarwal. Good morning to all of you. Good morning, Dr. Sahasrabudhe. It's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. And once again, a very, very hearty welcome to all our education leaders today who are present, Dr. Chaturvedi, Professor Mishra, Professor Rao, Vivek, and many other, Dr. Ranjit Gupta, and all of you who are present over here. It's indeed a great moment for all of us to come together to listen to somebody who himself is a change agent or a change master, I must say. I have a great pleasure in saying that Dr. Sahasrabudhe today in India represents what we call it as, in management terminology, the change master. Somebody who is not just merely a catalyst in the change process, but somebody who can really transform is today the biggest need. Why? Because of the fact that that our student profiles are changing, their expectations are changing, industry is changing, the economy is changing, the political social system is changing, and not just merely in India, but at a global level itself. The geopolitical changes are there, and therefore, from that kind of a perspective, education cannot remain aloof. We got to be there. We got to be part of that kind of a change, and not only part of the change, but also influence the direction of the change. And for that, clearly what we need is a transformation that is truly needed. Friends, for the last couple of months after we were established by the AIMA Council as a Vice-Chancellors Council, our objective had been, and we were fortunate to really have the new education policy declared almost at the same time. So the Vice-Chancellors Council, as was mentioned by Dr. Agarwal, and by that, had been discussing the various facets of the new education policy. As I looked at it, and I've looked at it from time to time, and I've said that in my writing, and I've also said it in multiple kind of platforms, it is considered today a disruptive policy, a policy that has a disruptive effect on higher education. Now, why is it so? Is it that we can think, if we were to go back in our childhood, was education in any way different from what has been envisaged in the new education policy? What is different about it? What is it that we are talking about? I think the disruption is because of the fact that it moves away from the current scenario where it was too much of a tight, or I would say tight regulation. A regulation that wasn't really based on trust. It's essentially based on mistrust. And as a consequence of which, compliance was more important than excellence. Innovation was never rewarded. It was the compliance. Are you really following, for example, the admission policy laid down by the regulator? Are you really adhering to that kind of a norm that has been prescribed by the regulator? Are you really recruiting the faculty as per whatever the regulator has said? Are you teaching what the regulator has said? So what has to be taught, how it has to be taught, to whom it has to be taught, all this was really being decided by somebody sitting in Delhi. And I have said that several times, that is not the way that we really look at education. Education has got to be, we got to be deciding as educationists as to what is it that has got to be done. And the other part of it was that the students were changing, industry was changing, but the pace at which the regulations were changing was not really in line with that. At the same time, there has been a plethora of regulators in this country, not just merely AICTE or UGC, but at the same time, the various respective statutory councils that would really come down heavily on the institutions. Having headed a multidisciplinary university, I must say that the time that I would have spent in responding to the compliance was much more than what I would have spent in really planning for growth itself. So what this new education policy had done is to really start taking a look at it, probably take a 180-degree view of the entire regulation itself. And Dr. Sahasrabudhe knows it too well. And as I said right at the beginning, AICTE, I mean, the change that has come about with Dr. Sahasrabudhe is really one such change that we were all looking at it for a long time with AICTE. We had been saying about it. For the first time, we were listening from the chairman that I trust you. For the first time, we were listening to the chairman of AICTE telling that we got to respect the institution. But at the same time, look at the kind of a national requirements. And certainly, I think institutions were more happily falling in line than what it would have been otherwise. And this, I have seen this at our own university itself, at my own university, at NMIMS, and in many of the management schools or some of the institutions that I headed and in the board or I was a part of the board, that there was a greater degree of willingness to go along with Dr. Sahasrabudhe. There was an implicit trust. So I believe that the trust begets trust. Since Dr. Sahasrabudhe took that kind of a step forward, the system started trusting him. And that is today the need of the hour. That is what I said. Now, if we were to look at it in terms of the future of education and the future education, if I were to look at it, and why this kind of a change? We are talking of a situation wherein technology today has come to play a central role. It is no more now somewhere in the corner of the institution, somewhere in the form of your main servers and those kinds of things that were there. And which would be, I would be teaching computer languages, or there would be a course that would be taught in the MBA program or somewhere in engineering on computer science and stuff like that. But they were somewhere in the corner, like a corporate. The computer department, the ERP system was somewhere in the corner. Today, that is not so. Technology is right in the center. Everything is revolving around the technology today. As a consequence of which, what has happened? Technology, the biggest benefit of technology is it has democratized education. No more now it is I, the teacher. It is we, the learning resources. We as the knowledge resources. Can I co-create? That is the kind of a biggest kind of a change that the technology has done. And the future really is in co-creation and collaborative learning rather than just merely being where we are talking about it. And therefore, technology, even in the form of your, I would say, the regulation itself. The next is obviously the biggest question that is coming up, is that is the degree really all that important? Or is it the skill that is important? And is there a way by which I can get these skills certified? That is a question that is coming up. And I think increasingly, as we look at the pattern that is emerging, the skills have become center point. and Dr. Sahasrabudhe has been talking at multiple platforms. I've been hearing it that it is a skill, focus on the skills. Even the last model curriculum that was created in engineering and in management, really was focused more on skills and project-based learning rather than just merely the classroom part of it. And the third is very clearly that we find that the technology has ceased to have made geography and time redundant. So if geography and time has become redundant in the learning process, obviously the regulatory system has to change. And so therefore the new regulatory framework as is proposed in the new education policy, as I read through, and as I kept on pondering over it increasingly, a couple of issues it has addressed. One is very clearly the trust. It is based on trust. It is based on, it is for the purpose of promoting innovations in the institutions. It is to promote excellence. It is to promote quality. It is to promote a differentiated approach to education. So accepting the fact that, well, differentiation is going to be there because institutions are different. So therefore the differentiated approaches are going to be there. The faculty is different. So therefore differentiated approach within the institution is also going to be there. And quite clearly, employability is going to be the important part. And therefore we cannot forget the employability and therefore the focus on the skills and including the vocational skills part of it. And the last are the two things which are important is the issues of governance and leadership at the institution level, not just merely at the macro level, but even at the institution level. And how, for example, the accountability of the institution can be encouraged through a self-disclosure. And so finally, it is the issues of growth. Friends, today we are going to be, we could not have had a better person to deliberate on all these issues than Dr. Sahasrabudhe, who is a part of the change process, who is leading the change process. And so therefore, let us listen to him. And as Dr. Agarwal said, we have planned it up as an interactive kind of a session rather than as a panel discussion kind of a mode. And therefore, I'm sure that Dr. Sahasrabudhe, you would allow the members to ask you questions. And so therefore, we hope to be able to ask as many questions as we can this morning. And certainly, we would be privileged to listen to Dr. Sahasrabudhe. Thank you very much. And once again, a very hearty welcome to you, Dr. Sahasrabudhe. May I request you to now take the floor, Dr. Anil Sahasrabudhe.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan Saxena, for that brilliant background for the new national education policy and what we are expecting from out of that and what are the challenges, opportunities, etc. on one side. But most importantly, a very good morning to all of you, Dr. Rajan Saxena, Dr. Raj Agarwal, as well as Harivansh Chaturvediji and so many others. I will not name everyone. They are all on the online platform today. And I'm very, very delighted to be amidst you on a very important day. You remembered Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose just in the beginning. That is, today is a very, very important day for us, Parakram Divas, 125th anniversary of Netaji. And another stalwart from the same state, West Bengal, that is Swami Vivekananda, who talked about education as manifestation of perfection already in man. I think these two, along with the new national education policy drafted by one of the most towering scientists of India, Dr. Kasturi Rangan, and which had Dr. Manjul Bhargava from Princeton University. So it has brought the wisdom of the East as well as the West into the national new education policy. And that's why it's a very, very important thing. I have been getting a lot of emails that there is no explicit mention of management. It is not written that, but it's a very concise document. A lot of things are spoken in generic words in a holistic manner, and that's why probably few things are not highlighted as much as some people would have expected. And that's why I will keep it aside, and I will come to the relationship that exists between AIMA and AICTE itself. You know, AIMA itself started in 1957, as I understand, and that happens to be my birth year. So I think we are our journey is almost together. And in AICTE, not only a lot of programs of postgraduate diploma management, but AIMA and AICTE together have held faculty development workshops, leadership workshops, and many other programs where we will be able to encourage educational institutions to excel. I think that is what is most important part of this. And our bondage, therefore, is very, very strong. During this COVID crisis, when we all have gone through this online education because of compulsion, prior to that, we had glimpses of that, but the major chunk of online started only during the COVID crisis. Thankfully, AIMA itself has been doing ODL program, and along with that, online can be now married together, whereby actually we can have a reach to much larger audience, and that is what is important. Quality education to larger audience. That is what is also envisaged in the policy. Thankfully, Corona crisis is likely to be over. We will also be meeting together. Co-vaccine, COVID shield, which have been already launched, will do some magic now in the country. But coming to the topic which was given to me, and some background of that is already said by Dr. Rajan Saxena, and all the Vice Chancellors are here in this particular platform, which is called Vice-Chancellors Council. So I think it is very important that the policy, even if it is good, it has to be implemented, and the implementation happens not from the government. Government can give only some kind of roadmap, but ultimately implementation is at the lower level, that is at state level, that is the university level, the college level, and that is why it is important that we understand the nuances of that. So before coming to the topic given to me, that is regulatory framework for growth and excellence in higher education, I would like to briefly touch upon 5-6 topics which are very relevant for what we are going to discuss in the regulatory framework as well. Number one, the schooling system is itself changed from 10+2 system to 5+3+3+4. And the initial foundational years of first 5 years are to be in the mother tongue. That means a smooth transition of the child from home to the school. And that is very, very significant. Secondly, skill development. You touched upon Saxena ji about whether it should be theory or the skill or the practice or both of that. I think skilling should start early age, right from the 6th standard itself. That means by the time a guy or a girl will complete the 12th standard, that person would have been expert in at least a couple of skills. Thereby, when that person comes to the higher education sector, it's again a smooth transition. While learning theory, experiential learning, practice-based learning becomes part of his life. And that is how the engineers or the managers or various other segments of the education, whether it's arts, commerce, science, medicine, law, all of them, when they graduate, they will have not just the theoretical background behind that particular subject matter, but also a highly experiential oriented people who will be able to create innovations. I think that is the whole spirit behind this particular policy. And that's why it also talks about two important things, that all universities have to be multidisciplinary, and also all institutions should get full autonomy. I think these are two twin very important words. And that's why those which are single domain educational institutions, whether it is law university or a management school or engineering degree awarding institution like even IITs, they are all required to slowly transgress into multidisciplinary domain. Thereby a student, depending on his choice, not only the main subject which he wants to learn is that particular subject, no doubt, but he will have access to all variety of education. And ultimately universities are nothing but a melting pot of all variety of domains of knowledge. And if we are not having humanities and social sciences or applied art, painting, music, dance, drama, the personality that gets developed from the university system will be lopsided. And that is why this absolute framework which is to be created will be based on multidisciplinary nature. The second aspect, as I said, is autonomy. Although right from inception of UGC way back in 1956, there has been a mention of that in all the policies, whether it is 1968 or 1986 policy, emphasis on giving autonomy to institutions, but there was a methodology involved in giving autonomy. And this autonomy was not being given or not being taken both ways. There are many reasons. I will not go into that. But unfortunately, not even 10 to 12% of the institutions today in our country are autonomous. This autonomy is for a variety of reasons. It is not just for management and governance structure, that is important, but most importantly, the academic governance is very, very important. What kind of curriculum should be there? What is the qualification of the faculty members who will be able to deliver that very well? What should be the nature of teaching learning process? What should be the nature of the examination? So that you can really test the candidate whether the outcomes that we have decided or the vision, mission, goals that we have set, are they being achieved? I think all of that is the responsibility at the lowest possible level, that is the college level or university level. But a regulator saying that you do this and do that, and I'll come back to that again later, but is not right, and that is what is emphasized right from beginning, but unfortunately it had not taken deep roots. This policy says that by 2035, there should be no university which is not autonomous. That means all the institutions should become universities in the first place. They should be large, minimum size of that being 3,000. You should be multidisciplinary. You must be completely autonomous and degree awarding. Then some may be teaching intensive, some may be research intensive, some may be a mix of the two. There is no categorization, which is very, very, what we say, a boundary wall being drawn between the two, but definitely one can go from a teaching university to a research university. It is not a total dimension of a classification, but it's a word which is very, very genuinely used as teaching intensive. That doesn't mean that they should not do research. Research intensive university does not mean that there is no teaching. Both have both the components, but someone is more in one particular domain than the other, that is teaching or research. I think that is what it is said, and all of the institutions in the country, how can they be reduced in size, numbers, from present maybe 40,000 to down to about 3,000-4,000, so that all of them are degree awarding institutions. I think this is a real challenge. How is it going to be achieved? We'll have to discuss that, and I'm sure some of you will ask some questions, and then I will try to answer rather than saying it now. I'm raising some flags and probing what is your opinion on some of them, and then we'll discuss on those issues. Coming next is not only multidisciplinary, but multiple exit and multiple entry. Why? Because many times a student, when he gets into the system of higher education, it is because of either parental pressure, friends, peers, or even relatives, and he has come in, and then he finds that he is not so much fit for this particular education. The classic movie of Three Idiots, I don't want to reiterate, and therefore if a person wants to go out, he should not be handicapped, but he should get some certificate, some diploma at the end of 1, 2, 3 years, and all the degree programs shall be minimum 4 years program. So this is another area which is a transformation from the past. Secondly, if someone goes out and wants to return after a few years, after he has settled down and some problems were there, he has addressed them, he must have access to coming back to that institution or any other institution. And that's why academic bank of credits is one of the phenomenon which is again new. Academic bank of credits within an institution does exist. You do some of these credits and then maybe 1 year drop and again come back. But you can go out for even 4 or 5 years was never thought of. If you leave the institution, and if the degree program is of 3 years duration, the university statutes do not permit your registration to be continued beyond 5 or 6 years. And similarly for the 4-year program, maybe 6 or 7 years. If someone is taking 10 years to complete, or he goes out and wants to come back, there was no provision. This policy allows that as well. I think these are some of these very, very important things. And to support innovation, to support research, National Research Foundation, headed by none other than Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, to take care of this, and directly Prime Minister's office being involved. Large-scale funding for research in science, technology, humanities, social sciences, management, law, medicine is going to be possibility now. I think these are broad things which I wanted to say before coming to the regulatory framework for growth and excellence in higher education. These are all connected. That's why I wanted to say all of this. We have grown from 0.7% GR at the time of independence to 27%. This policy wants it to raise to nearly 50% by 2035. That means nearly double the gross enrollment ratio in higher education. The population is also increasing. Therefore, from the present 3.2 crore plus students in the higher education, that is likely to be 10 crore, 100 million. Many of the countries of the world do not have that kind of population. And therefore, I think there is a big challenge. There is education, which is general education. There is engineering, technology, that means technical education, which also encompasses management, hotel management, applied arts, crafts. But on the other side, there is medical education, law education. I think these are various things. Now, till now, there were multiple regulatory bodies. One of the challenges which institutions, especially in the private sector, the self-financed institutions used to face is from the clutches of these multiple regulatory bodies. I used to give a classic example of an architecture or a pharmacy institution, which is a deemed university, will have multiple regulatory bodies. Pharmacy Council itself, AICTE, because it is in the act of AICTE. Then subsequently, because it is a deemed university, UGC will come in the picture. Sometimes state government, central government, all of them will come in and say that you are not following this, you are not following that. And that is where this policy, as Kasturirangan committee went into greater detail. They had a lot of discussion with all the regulatory bodies and come out with this formula, what is known as, we call today in this new policy, this is called as HECI, Higher Education Commission of India. This is per se itself is not a regulatory body. HECI is a concept which is an apex body which will take care of the entire higher education system of the country. It has multiple wings actually. In fact, there are 4 major verticals. The first vertical of that is NHERC, that is National Higher Education Regulatory Council. I think this is the first objective of becoming single regulatory body. Whether it is NCTE, UGC, AICTE, and many others will get all merged into one identity, and that is NHERC. That means the entire regulation framework will be governed by NHERC. Now, how it should do, etc., I will come little later. But essentially, Higher Education Commission of India is a broad framework under which 4 verticals. One of the verticals is a regulatory vertical, and it takes care of all variety of education, whether it is a university, whether it is a college, whether it is an affiliated one, whether it is a standalone institution, whether it is a state university, whether it is a public state university, whether it is a central university. All of that come under the ambit of this NHERC. Now, how it has to function, what are their features which the policymakers thought of, and how during implementation, what ministry and we at AICTE, UGC are thinking, I will come little later. The second vertical, which is also very, very important, is what even Raj referred as well as Saxena ji referred, is about standard setting body, which is called General Education Council. So this General Education Council is again must be having multiple verticals within that, depending on the nature of the program, the major program, management education, and engineering education, or pharmacy education, architecture education, arts education, commerce education, maybe science education. All of these require to have some kind of a setup whereby the desired outcomes are achieved. That means after the graduation, what is that outcome that we are desiring out of that graduate has to be pre-decided, and to achieve those outcomes, what are the possible requirements that has to be satisfied by an educational institution, whether it is in terms of curriculum, whether it is in terms of infrastructure, whether it is in terms of even faculty, what type of laboratories if required, what type of computational requirements. All those requirements are to be embedded in that, which is called General Education Council, under which all variety of education, how it has to be dealt with, is given as a broad platform. And since I'm again and again repeating of autonomy, taking cue from out of that, whatever is absolutely necessary will be put in place in the whatever regulatory body comes in, which is called NHERC, that every institution has to satisfy this kind of a thing, so that your graduates, when they graduate, they will have this minimum quality, minimum standard, minimum excellence. Each institution has freedom to tweak with that, to go beyond that, to create a system where you can excel even better than what the standard setting body has desired or has thought of. I think that is the connection between what we call General Education Council and the council which is NHERC. The next other 2 councils are, which are again important, After having given approvals by the NHERC, the institutions, when they are functioning, the accreditation will also become mandatory, and this will come from another vertical which is called the National Accreditation Council. Today we have two major such councils, what is NAC and the National Board of Accreditation, NBA. NBA for the technical programs. In particular, they are all for variety of programs. They are program wise, individual program wise. Whereas NAC does an institution wise accreditation. So there must be two possibilities: an institution coming for accreditation as an entity wholesomely, or for a particular program, so that you say that this program is an excellent order. This is one part. We also have already national institutional ranking framework. India Ranking Society is already formed. So that will become some kind of a different subsidiary of indirectly accreditation and ranking. They are two different things. But accreditation, which is a NAC, will take care of this. The fourth vertical is funding. And you rightly pointed out, new education policy does not distinguish between government or the private institutions. And therefore, funding for not only government institutions, maybe funding for the government institutions may be little larger in quantum compared to that of the private, because in private or self-financed institutions, they will be able to survive by charging the fees and they will be maintaining. But when it comes to excellence, whether it is in terms of innovation, whether it is in terms of research, I think there should be no distinction between private and a public, a government institution. That is what this policy talks about. Therefore, whether it is funding through this new vertical called Funding Council or the National Research Foundation, both will be given equal treatment. Provided you show the results, you will continue to get more and more funding. I think that is what the policy framework for what I said, regulatory framework in terms of HECI and its four verticals are concerned. Now, since the topic is more focused on regulatory framework, and so I will come to now what is known as NHEQF, National Higher Education Qualification Framework. So in this framework, I look upon this as in two directions. There are always people who say that there should be no regulation. It's totally unregulated, no need of regulation. There must be absolutely free growth, survival of the fittest. These kind of terminologies are used, and therefore those who survive, they will become excellent and excellence will automatically come in. But there is a flip side of that. Because total freedom is given, total autonomy is given to everyone, there are always possibilities that there will be institutions who will not take it seriously. There will be cheating which will happen in the system, stakeholders will become unhappy, and finally the government will be responsible for substandard quality of education rendered by some of the institutions. Therefore, on one side, although autonomy is important, no regulation should be there, so that there should be complete freedom. Very, very robust way of looking at it. Certainly, this is one opinion, but the other opinion is there must be total control, excessive regulation, which Saxena ji said, or anyone else always complains about regulatory bodies being too, rigid. And I have also myself seen, and I have been opposed to these kind of things quite right from beginning when I joined here. That is, there is a requirement of a classroom size of 66 square meters for 60 students. And if it is 65.8 square meters, 0.2 square meters shortage, you must have no admission. I think these kind of ridiculous things. Or if there are multiple programs run from a campus, where is the boundary wall between the management college which you are running and the engineering college? I think today we talk about multidisciplinary. In fact, more the mixing of students of management and engineering, there will be more better startups which will emanate from that educational institution. And therefore, first foremost thing is breaking of these walls between different domains of education. And that anyway, we have started doing it much before even the policy has stated this in very, very clear terms. But I think this is another area that many people say that there must be one single curriculum for the whole nation. There must be a lot of prescriptive measures that should be taken. See, these are one other extreme kind of school of thought. So these are two school of thoughts which exist: total freedom, total liberation, etc. on one side, and on the other side, full control, regulation, excessive prescription. So I think where we have to go according to this policy and according to even my personal opinion is somewhere in between. and each one of us have to draw our own Lakshman Rekha. This is very, very significant. Institutions who get full freedom, they should also think about up to what extent we should use this freedom, for why should we use this freedom, where should we use this freedom, so that ultimately the stakeholder is benefited. Stakeholder, when I mean the students who are paying fees and coming to your institution on one side, the faculty who are rendering their service to your institution on the other. The third one is industry, the society, the government, which should get this benefit out of your educational institution. So each one has to decide their own vision, mission, goals, and then within the broad framework given by whether it is the HEC as one of the four wings, whatever they are saying, and your own school of thought. Each organization have their own philosophies. Someone wants to create more researchers, someone wants to create job creators, someone wants to create employable graduates. I think depending on your own respective vision, mission, goals, you tweak with the requirements and then go ahead. I think this is what is the most important thing in this part. And therefore, this policy has used two very significant words. Regulation must be light but tight. I think this is where many people keep asking, what is this light, what is this tight? In my own way, I have been explaining, light is that it has no day-to-day regulatory control of whatever that regulatory agency comes in. That is what I said, the NHERC should not go and check the facilities, check the faculty, check this, that. That should not be done like an inspection Raj. What is to be done? Light is every institution should be allowed to, on their own, provide all the information transparently on their own website and onto the website of the regulatory body, that this is all what we have. And this is how we are going to run. This is how we are going to admit students. This is the fee we are going to charge. This is how we are going to spend it. This is how we are going to have our curriculum designed. This is how we are going to have faculty. This is how we are going to have interaction with the industry. This is how we are going to have outcome, and we are giving you an assurance that we will achieve those targets which we have set for ourselves. I think this is what is transparently depicting yourself as a self-disclosure. And then there is nothing more than that the regulatory body has to do. They have to simply automatically, approval should go to that institution for initially maybe year-on-year basis. Subsequently, after having tested waters and seen to it that it is doing good job, it is getting accredited regularly, give a large number of years of approval, and they should not be under the pressure that every year should I be having this problem, that problem. They should be problemless. I think that is what is light. Now, when it comes to tight, a very robust mechanism of addressing the grievances of the stakeholders. And the most important stakeholder, student, next stakeholder, faculty, the other staff in the organization, and even industry, the parents, the society, the government. If there is any complaint on an educational institution stating that this particular institution claimed so and so on their website, but they don't have any of this or part of this, I think that is where the regulatory body should come in and find out, giving enough opportunity to that organization, why did you write this and why are you not providing it? Then the institution should say, yes, we did say that, we are sorry, in between there was some change, we will change it now immediately. And if they are coming on board, I think that should be allowed, because many times we claim that we have 150 faculty, and within say some 10 days or 15 days, some 20 faculty leave the institution. The number will come down. Suddenly someone will complain, sir, they have said 150, there are only 135. I think we should go back into the history and see whether 1 month back there were 150 or not is the first thing, and whether they have now attempted to add on 15 more faculty in terms of giving an advertisement and seriousness is shown. That is what is the role of the regulatory body. If this is all done, I think the complaint has to be disposed of. But if regularly, routinely, someone is deliberately doing something, giving fake information, trying to cheat the system, the stakeholders, I think very heavily the regulatory body has to come in, and that is where the tight is also continuing. Although Saxena ji said there should be no tight regulation, I think tight regulation is also required, because there are some of the institutions in our own country who will violate all kind of things and misuse the freedom. And that's why freedom is on one side, therefore freedom comes always with accountability. The autonomy and accountability go hand in hand. And in our country, especially with many children who come from very, moderate income, low income families, with their heavy money, which is taken, borrowed from either some relatives or from the banks, which they have to repay. If we are treating such people, I think that is not right, which is what has happened in some of the companies. I don't want to name some of those things, but I think that is what is required. And therefore, like company law, this act, which is going to come under HECI, must take care of both sides very economically. And therefore, I hope all of you appreciate what is talked about in the policy. And many of these things are being already in the stage of implementation. There have been large number of committees set up both by UGC, AICTE, merging of the opinion, and then rolling it out will happen in a couple of months' time. There must be an act to be passed. Bill has to come into the parliament. That also will be shared with the public. And if there are further suggestions on how it has to be managed, you're all welcome to continue to participate in that. And now I think I have done enough. And there must be more discussion rather than one-way traffic of speaking. So I stop at this. The floor is open to the audience to ask questions or ask also suggestions, so that some of them get incorporated in the implementation strategy and the plan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sahasrabudhe, for your wonderful kind of an address to all of us. And you really laid out the entire, I would say, the roadmap, or I would say the ground for all of us to really consider and to look at what is that ground on which we are all going to be treading from 21 onwards, or whenever the implementation comes in a full force itself. And clearly, it is here that I think issues have been coming up. Soumya will put up some of the questions to you. If the person concerned is not willing to ask or directly, but we would encourage each of you to please ask. Each of you are learned educators and educationists alongside with all of us, and so therefore all of you can really ask that kind of questions. On a very lighter side, sir, light regulation, but at the same time, I would not use the tight, but I would use a word called effective regulation. I think what you are really talking about is effective regulation, and I think that is the important part. I think all of us are really looking at effective kind of a regulation.
No, I use the terminology which is written in the policy of
right.
But what you say is the right way of doing. If you say effective, in that case you don't have to use both the words light as well as tight.
All right, sir. Okay. All right. So we'll go for.
I'm already seeing two questions here. One from Dr. Manoj Arora, and the other one below that is from, I think, Anuja Pandey. So first, let me take the first one. He talks about whether when universities can start implementing multiple entry-exit options. I think there are few things for which you don't require any green signal to be given from the ministry. Multiple exit, multiple entry is a phenomenon which any university even earlier could have done it, but now it is explicitly stated in the policy, so you have all the freedom to do that. So I think don't wait for anything. In your own university, your academic council or your senate, whatever the nomenclature you have in your organization, you bring in an agenda with a robust way of how do you want to deal with that. There are some challenges. Few challenges I would like to address before you start implementing. These are not going to be guidelines which may come later from the ministry, but one challenge which exists is, suppose you start an engineering degree program of 4 years after the class 12 standard. And in the first year, he finds that he is not fit for that. And therefore, he wants to quit. Now, the policy says you can give certificate at the end of 2 years, some diploma. Now, unfortunately, our entire curriculum has been designed in a structured, linear fashion. And that's why if you look at the first year curriculum of any engineering school, you will have very less engineering itself. You will have physics, chemistry, math, you will have engineering, graphics or drawing, you will have workshop practice, you will have one C programming course or a basic electrical or something like that. And he, after doing all of that, if he gets out with a certificate, what kind of certificate? Will he be useful to himself or somewhere? That is a challenge. Therefore, when we talk about this kind of a exit system, should we allow after 1 year or should we allow after 2 years? And if a person has found that he is not fit into this engineering domain, in the second year, give him some kind of skill sets which will enable him to either get employed with a certificate or diploma, or he should be in a position to start something on his own. I think that is the responsibility of the university. So with this caution, I would like to urge that don't wait for anyone. I think your university can start off with some thinking on these lines and discuss that threadbare in your senate, all your professors. Bring in industry experts because they know what kind of people they will be ready to recruit if they come out of 1 year or 2 year, and what is their requirement. I think if you match these two, I don't think you have to wait. The policy is already saying, and this was allowed earlier also. Who had stopped actually? So there was nowhere said that you cannot do it. But now that you have got this policy framework, one can start doing it. Therefore, when can we start? I have answered that. And how can you start and what precautions have to be taken? Also, I have narrated. I think this is one part. The second one is the academic bank of credits. There are more challenges in this because a person taking some credits in one university or college and keeps it in his account, it is like bank account. Of course, today we have account where in Indian banks we only keep in rupees. If you are in Europe, you will be in euros or in dollars in US and so on. But when you go to ATM in that country, if you have a credit card, debit card, you get the currency of your choice. So it is exactly the opposite here. So you get credit from an arts college, you put it in your account. Similarly, in your same account, you can keep an engineering course which you have done from an engineering college, and you can keep on accumulating these credits. Now, the challenge are twofold. First is, how are you going to equate this equivalence of credits? Because the definition of credit itself, unfortunately, has been varying not only worldwide, but within India, within the state also. Different IIT systems, IITs themselves also have a different definition of credit in IIT Bombay, IIT Madras and IIT Kanpur. So with that being the definition of credit itself, someone has done a 3-credit course, should we also take it as 3 credit, or in my college, if you come with those 3 credits, I will treat it as 2 credits. I will treat it as 4 credits. Therefore, some kind of a standard definition which is acceptable to all the institution needs to be done as a credit framework itself. I think that work is already ongoing. There is a committee set up by the ministry. Something will emerge out of that, and that can be then later followed by all the institutions. Secondly, if you go from one institution to the other, and if you are doing some courses and some credits in one domain and another course from another domain, can we have all kind of such credits to be taken together as giving a degree? Maybe one generic degree can still be awarded, but if you say that there are 64 kalas, in Indian ancient systems, we used to call 64 kalaएं होती थी. And there can be 64 different types of courses for each one of them. And I will take 3 credits, 64 into 3, some 100 or 30 odd, which is what is important for getting a full-fledged degree in engineering. So give me an engineering degree now. I think that is also not going to be possible. Therefore, while we know that something is allowed, there must be some core requirement of a particular nature of degree. All said and done, although multidisciplinary nature, research is multidisciplinary, if you say that you are getting a degree in commerce or degree in science, say physics, BSc physics, naturally you should have large number of courses of the physics domain to be taken. I cannot say that I will take all the courses of arts and ask for giving a BSc physics. So these kind of challenges will still continue to be there, which can be done by some committees here, and then some broad guidelines will come. There are already electives available, choice-based electives. You can have free electives, not necessarily from your domain. Those you can collect from any source, no problem. But some generic core courses, if you are a management degree holder, naturally management phenomena, management courses are to be taken. You cannot take all courses of science and say that you give me management degree. I think these are some of those things which will be addressed in this academic bank of credits. Those credits are available. Even though you have a large number of credits, if a university decides to give a degree by asking him to do some more courses, they may not take all the credits out of that because of your own way of designing a curriculum. You will say so many credits which you have already earned from the past from different college or university, they are allowed to be added here, but you need to do this, so that I will give you a BA in economics or BSc in chemistry or something like that. I think I have made substantially clear about philosophically is fine, but actually implementation wise, some of these challenges need to be clearly enunciated. Then we can start using this business of taking credits of another university through the academic bank of credits.
Dr. Saxena, may I just add a question here? Rajni here, Dr. Rajni Gupte here.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Sahasrabudhe, in this context, I visualize another problem. Even if the program is the same, the level of inputs in different universities or different colleges could be different. For instance, if a student from a small college somewhere is doing engineering, but he wants to come to College of Engineering, Pune, will you simply accept the credits that he has done in another engineering college as being equivalent to credits at COEP Pune? That could be another challenge, because it's not just the number, it's not just the type of courses, it's also the level at which the course has been taught. So while the credits may be there, the course may be there, to what level has it been taught? Has it really been taught at the level at which this college would prefer it to be taught, to be able to award him a degree from that university? So I was thinking of what if SIBM Pune was to accept a student from somewhere else, we would set a certain bench, a bar. So would that be allowed? We would say that if you have done this much, or you pass a certain entrance exam, some kind of a test needs to be done before you equate credits, even if they are in the same courses.
No,
I don't know how you would react to this.
No, there could be multiple challenges. That's why I only gave one example, which is totally, certainly everyone will understand quickly that
Yes.
this kind of a
Perfectly
thing is not
right.
possible. But the other challenges, as I said, is even the equivalence of number of credits itself is also another challenge, which I have also said.
Yes.
The third challenge, as you rightly said, is the quality challenge also.
Correct.
So someone has done some course in some institution, and that is why I said what I will accept or not accept has to be given freedom to the institution which is going to give the degree. I indirectly said that in the other two countries, because you have so many credits. I will not accept all of them. I will take this many credits. Either you have also an MOU with that organization. Today also, when our students go for 1 semester abroad or 1 year abroad and they do courses there, we are accepting those credits when they come back to our system. Or our students going there or their students coming here, their credits are transferred actually. Even universities in Germany, universities in Canada accept Indian institutions' credits because they have signed an MOU with an almost equivalent nature of an institution. They know that there is a confidence level that this is what it is. So there could be in such exchange of credits, MOUs, multilateral MOUs. We have 7-8 universities together will form a cluster, and we say that we recognize each other's courses because we know all of them are at the similar level. Everything cannot be same, but at least more or less they are in the NIRF ranking in the top 50. So we all are one unity, and therefore we accept the credits. Then we will not go into details.
Yes.
The other part could be you are doing it from some other institution. Just because this facility is provided, this is only enabler. This cannot be like what you say is my matter of right. And therefore, the candidate, when he comes, an institution may have a preliminary test, like we do prerequisite. If you have to do this particular course, you require some prerequisite knowledge. Yeah. Many institutions give waivers of some earlier learned courses. We say that okay, you don't have to do it. But how do you do? Either you believe in that course being done well, fine. Otherwise, you give a test actually. Many times in our first year engineering, we all remember that there is a test of English. So if you know fairly good amount of English in reading, writing skills, you are waived from taking an English course. Otherwise, mandatorily, you have to take an English course. So similarly, you need to based on that you accept it or you don't accept it. I think these are what I'm saying, that there are enabling clauses in this policy, but how do you use them? There must be a lot of debate, discussion, and you, Rajini, pointed out absolutely a right thing. You know, some substandard university in some corner of the country, they come to an excellent institution like IIT and say that that credit should be counted here. I think IIT will say, no, we will not count that.
Absolutely.
I think that you raised the right alarm, actually.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a question. Can I?
Yeah, Anju Pandey.
Yeah, so say suppose somebody does a course from SWAYAM where there is a 3-credit, 12-week course where 3 credits are awarded there. Would that be equivalent to a course which he does in a management or an engineering college? Would these credit be counted?
It is already being counted for the last more than 2 years. In fact, number of credits allowed by UGC and AICTE was 20% of the entire course structure. If your degree program has, say, 180 credits, out of that 20% means 36 credits, up to 36 credits, one can take from any of these SWAYAM courses, and then you add it to your transcript. But which 36 credits, which courses out of NPTEL or the SWAYAM portal are allowed is again a matter of the priority to be done by the university. No one can say that I have done this course from IIT Madras and you please count it on my side. Today also it is not allowed. The particular university has to announce that these are the 10 courses which we are allowing for this semester. If you take them from wherever in SWAYAM, maybe from some university or IIT or NIT or some other institution which is floated on the SWAYAM platform, will be considered as an equivalent to our own curriculum. And only that course, if the student does, they get accredited, counted towards the mark sheet or the transcript as what we say. So the same philosophy will continue in the other part, actually, what I have stated in terms of multiple, credits being counted into the academic bank of credits and used. Not all credits can be used. Still, a student wants to do a NPTEL or SWAYAM course of a psychology from a very good professor from NIMHANS, or someone wants to do from economics, Delhi School of Economics, or some social change or some institute like that, or from Narsi Monji Institute. I want to use his institute name, former institute, of course. So he wants to do that course. Now, he has every liberty to do it. He can use it as a certificate while he goes for an interview. But unless his own university or college has accepted that to be counted towards the credit, it cannot be counted. So the provision is 20%. Now it is being expanded in the post-COVID era to 40%. Because we have found that online is going to become the order of the day. Blended learning is going to become the order of the day. And so from 20%, gradually it is moving to 40%. And full online degree program is also being allowed for the universities which have shown their credibility in terms of top 100 NIRF ranking, category 1, graded autonomous institutions. All of them are being given permission to have full online degrees. Of course, there are restrictions on such courses where you require exhaustive experimentation and practical skill sets to be achieved. But as far as theory courses are concerned, there is no ban on any of the courses. So any one of those courses can be easily taken. For example, in aerospace engineering, you want to do a course on pilot, and then he says that I have done everything theoretical course on the online course. And do you give him a aircraft for Boeing 707 or something to fly? We won't, So he has to really do flying on the actual aircraft, not on the simulator alone. So those kind of restrictions will be there. But otherwise, by and large, I think there will be a lot of credit transfer which is likely to happen in the future.
So means that there is no distinction between this credit transfer from full-time education as well as in distance education. It depends on the institute to recognize it.
Yeah, I saw your question. I wanted to answer. So indirectly, this is a reply because already SWAYAM itself is a distance education. It is in a way distance or in a way online, you call it. So it is some kind of a blend of. See, I think these all distinctions are gradually becoming, blur. What ODL we used to call, and there was a new terminology started being used online. What is the difference? In an ODL, standard IGNOU was one of the finest central universities, they were sending the course material to the candidates at their home. And I remember during my time, my friends, I didn't go through that channel, but otherwise many students used to take brilliant tutorials for doing JEE. So that was a distance education. Coaching was in a distance mode. There used to be tests. And similarly, we have IGNOU as a model, and there are several open distance universities. But the material being transmitted through the, what you say, postal material in the form of books or notes, today does not require that. Actually, you can send a PDF file and you can download it, print it, keep it on your computer. So what is online after all? In online also, you are giving lectures online, and the interaction between faculty and students for solving the difficulties is happening online. And in earlier model, there used to be some study centers where once in a week students used to go and ask the difficulties to some of the faculty members. So I think the two models, somewhere face to face, somewhere part of that is online. And today during pandemic, everything has been successfully done in online. There is no interaction. Faculty and student see only on the computer screen like we are seeing each other today without shaking hands. And therefore, this distinction between online and ODL is almost getting dissolved. And MOOC is another version of that. MOOC is interestingly still better because it is anytime learning. So even in an online learning, you announce a time schedule and a student will have to come onto the platform and learn from you, teacher, when he is teaching during that hour. But in the SWAYAM platform or the synchronous, asynchronous, two types of possibilities, this is possible that you at your own freedom, at night at 10 o'clock, I am free, I will study that course and then give the assignment, which is for him particularly, and then he will take an exam, of course, during the same time. Or even exams, now they are becoming multi-dimensional. No exam need not be at the same time. There are hundreds of questions. Question bank can be created of the similar difficulty level questions, and 1/3 questions are easy, 1/3 difficult, one third very difficult question. These are banks, and randomly a question will pop up. So then that exam can be individualized or personalized examination, but still of the same standard. I think the technology is moving in a manner that I think all these distinctions which you are blurring. But all said and done, I am still repeating, although they are blurring, they are fine as far as theoretical education is concerned. When it comes to hands-on practical, although there are virtual labs, there are simulation labs, but there are items where you have to work by hand. I think that distinction, doing chemical engineering plant, doing mechanical engineering, whether it is IC engine or robotics or something like that, I think all on computer is not possible. You have to, dirty your hands. Without that, you will not gain that experience.
Yes.
Can I ask one question, sir?
Ask one question.
Sir, I'm happy that you have really touched on a lot of issues, and mainly what you said was that everything is going to depend on the implementation and how we actually, even at the university level, implement these things. You talked about the academic bank of credits. See, my sense has always been that the effectiveness of any policy is determined by the fact that when we implement that policy, it is designed to solve an existing problem. But at the same time, the implementation of that policy should not create another problem. Otherwise, we'll end up in the same situation. Now, I'm looking at, I just opened this, the draft version of the academic bank of credits that has already come now. Now, in that it says that the eligibility criteria for approval of higher education institutions to participate in the ABC scheme. So it is not open to everyone as per this draft version. It is open to those institutions which have gone through NAC and have achieved a minimum of A in their ranking. Only those can participate in this. Now, what I'm trying to say is that, so an institution cannot go into NAC for 5 years. they have to go operate for 5 years in order to apply and get the NAC grading. So a lot of institutions are now ineligible to be part of this scheme. So I, as a student, I don't get admission in a institution that is an A grade NAC accredited. I get somewhere which is a B grade. Now I cannot accumulate these credits, and they are worthless to me because I'm ineligible. So what this policy has done is that it has become very, in implementing this, it is very discriminatory to the students. The student should have the same right. It is for the institutions that should decide how much of this credit they want to take, whether they want to take it or they don't want to take it. Whereas here what is happening is that a new regulatory regime is now coming in. And we are now defining a new type of regulation. I understand that probably the people who are working on this, their objective is to ensure that every university gets NAC accreditation and they get an A grade. That is fine. That's what the purpose probably is behind this thinking. But I think we need to use other ways of ensuring that the universities will comply, because this is going to have an impact on the students. If our objective is that NAC accreditation should be there and everybody should have a minimum of A grade, we need to have a policy in that direction. But we should not go through the direction of hurting the students' interest in order to ensure that the universities will become NAC accredited. Just my thought, your response to you.
Professor Kamleshji, there are institutions which were fly-by-night operators. You know how many institutions got closed in the last 5 years from AICTE? Engineering colleges, management institutions, and even some other variety of institutions. Nearly 1,000 of them got closed in the last 5 years. Another 1,000 got added also.
Yeah.
Now, all those added are also not guaranteed that they are the excellent institution. So therefore, some kind of an yardstick is necessary for exchange. And beyond that also, the institution which is receiving has powers to accept or not accept it. Even though they are part of the academic bank of credit, you can't force anyone that our credits have to be accepted. So there is always a challenge, and therefore, as I said, this is going to be a quality based, and therefore all of them should become NAC accredited or NBA accredited, whatever is a goal, and that too not just mere accreditation but of high quality. This is the goal. Ultimately, the education should lead towards excellence. That is the whole motive behind this. Secondly, the student is not going to be disadvantaged. A student who is joining an institution which is not NAC or NBA accredited, he is aware that his credits are not going to be counted. So if his quality is good, in a competitive world, he will go to a better institution, and his credits will certainly be then transferred. It is not what you are saying that it is disadvantageous. You know this right from beginning. The transparency is important, that this institution, being not an accredited institution, its credits are not going to be counted. And if that is known to me, willingly I am taking admission in that institution, then I can't complain and crib about it. But if an institution which is already accepted, suddenly you remove it, probably there is a challenge. Those kind of issues also likely to happen. Because today, it's some institution is a NAC accredited institution. It's part of the academic bank of credits. Their credits are all counted between the year this to this. Suddenly, the next round of cycle, probably the quality has diminished. It goes out of the accreditation. What will happen in that particular student who has already joined a year or two? So I think these are the kind of small nuances which have to be addressed. So even if there is a change in the status, that will continue. The people who have joined earlier for last 1 or 2 years, they will get that advantage. But the people who will join later will not get advantage, because now it is notified. I think some kind of a formula has to be worked. See, that is why this is all put in public domain. This is not still final. All your doubts have to be brought in. All kind of nuances have to be worked out, and only then it will be, in the public domain.
My submission was simple. Rajan sir, if you could allow me for a minute.
Dr. Raina, just 1 minute, Dr. Raina. Yeah. We'll have to just do a bit of
a second. I was just wanting to add on to what Anilji said about these MOOCs courses. What we have thought was a way forward so that students at length get the real exposure to the course. So we made sure that the faculty has a grip of the course, which is available through Coursera or any other platforms. Once that is there, then we allow the student to go for that course with a little bit of duration so that he understands the nitty-gritties of the course theoretically as well as in practical domain. What we have tried in some of the practical oriented courses in, let us say, management, communication, critical thinking, so well was true with design. So we have to find ways how can the real learning happen in the students. It is the responsibility of the institutions concerned. So I thought I'll make a mention. Catching up with Anilji was saying.
Thank you, Roshan. Thank you. Dr. Chaturvedi?
Sir, some of my friends and Professor Rajan Saxena, they have raised this issue of disruptive technology, which is going to play a very significant role in future. So my question is related to the perspective given by National Education Policy for next 15 years. But in the same period, we are likely to see a lot of disruptions in higher education all over the world, particularly companies like edX and Coursera. They are providing a new model of higher education that is based on skill certificates and modularization. And more serious danger for the brick and mortar universities and colleges is the threat from the tech giants like Google, Microsoft, which are also plunging into the higher education. And Amazon has already started by launching their programs and courses. They have already entered into the coaching for JEE. So I think if Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, these companies will disrupt the higher education, which is the most likely scenario next 10 to 15 years, I do not find any future left for the brick mortar universities and colleges. And most of the Indian higher education institutions are still away from visualizing and imagining this scenario. So it will be the role of the regulatory bodies and the policy makers that how well we are preparing under the new education policy, our universities and colleges, so that they can survive during this disruptive age.
All right. Just 1 minute, Dr. Sahasrabudhe. Please put your questions in a very sharp manner, so that there is enough time for every one of us. Dr. Sahasrabudhe.
Chaturvedi ji, although whether it is Google or some of the companies have their own certification programs for quite some time, and gradually they have started inducting some of these people who just take a certificate, part of their job, and then continue progress in their organization. But if you look at the total number of people that they do like this is pretty small even today. And therefore, all said and done, the necessity of brick and mortar will continue for quite some time. So this is a myth that everything will be only online is not going to happen for quite some time. The change that is going to happen is a blended mode of learning. That is some part of that education being in the online mode, some part in the physical phases. That is important. Ultimately, the holistic development of a person comes through not just the mere classes and the work that happens in the academic institution proper in the classrooms, but it happens in the laboratories, it happens in the internship programs, it happens in the playground, team building, sports, cultural activities, dance, drama, music, everything has its place. And some of these things cannot be done online. Can you have an acting of a drama on a stage with a online like this? Rajan Saxena ji acting as a king and I'm a savior or something like that. It's not possible. And therefore, we must have physical spaces where we do. And secondly, all values, ethics, honesty, integrity also comes in from interaction between people to people. And that is what is going to be a challenge, and online will not be able to do that. And that is why value of what we say physical spaces in the academic institution, not just merely classrooms. I'm talking about playground. I'm talking about the various types of clubs, music, dance, drama, paint. All of that will require physical action. Some of that also will go online. I'm not saying that also, I have seen painting and dance classes also becoming online. But a few of these things still will require a measured way of interaction. and especially honesty, integrity is caught by people and observation rather than theory lecture. I have a classic example. I have my own experience of this. One of the committees where I was part of that, and we went to the Masuri Academy, and a guy who had scored highest marks in the values paper. There is an ethics paper in the IAS, UPSC. The person who had scored the highest was the most unethical there. So you know the answer. In what context, what is the right answer is known to him. Because he is a brilliant guy. But he will not practice it. He will practice when he sees Rajan Saxena, when he sees Harivansh Chaturvedi ji, how they behave in a classroom, what they see, are they following that walk the talk, and from that, and you don't require all 100% faculty to be very honest and integrity high. Even 20% of the faculty, if they are there, students will catch that from them, not the 80% of them. Because young generation is morally much better than our generation, in fact, my observation. But if you are not doing that, they will not accept it, so easily. And that is why face-to-face mode is a very, very significant and important.
Right. Well said, Dr. Sahasrabudhe. Dr. Naveen Gupta. Please unmute. Please unmute. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajan sir. Good morning, sir. Anil sir. Sir, your positive outlook, your positive aura, and the integrity always inspire us to ask something. Your interaction has inspired us. So I have few issues in my mind. Though, as Professor Rajan Saxena said, we are all co-creators. So even then, I am also equally responsible. But there are three issues in my mind. First, few institutions are looking, because of the low admission, for the salary reduction, cost cutting. So that is because we are all the stakeholder. So what is the coping mechanism, or what the regulatory bodies can do, how they can design some intervention? The second, I am from Agra, so affiliated with the AICTE. Very cheap books like question answer series have diluted the education standard, especially of management education. Third, as you said very rightly, sir, from light to tight, but mindset of the people, that makes a lot of difference. So can we request what can be done if the regulatory body like AICTE can start not as a bureaucrat but as a facilitator that will help us to so many institutions? Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Sahasrabudhe.
Dr. Gupta ji, we have already started becoming facilitator for quite some time, even helping institutions to get accreditation. We have a Margadarshan scheme, different awards. I think we have changed our dress from regulator to a facilitator quite some time ago, but more needs to be done. Fine, that is the last part of it. But you said light but tight. That time I also heard the word might. So we should not show our might is this the third part of this light but tight, actually, probably. In a lighter way. But the second one, I think, going by this kind of books or cheap one in terms of notes, guides, I think we have to dissuade our students. And unfortunately, this is all happening, I will tell you, because the way question papers are set. Another reform which AICTE has undertaken is the examination reforms. If you want to be innovative, right from KG to PG, our examination papers, which have all based on rote learning, I think we have to move away from that. Maximum 30% of the questions to be on the basis of memory, remaining 70% on the basis of understanding of the subject, the higher order of thinking, the analytical ability, critical thinking, innovation, creativity. Can we set questions on such matters? Then there is no guide which will help them. They have to really struggle to do on their own some exercise, thinking, and then come and answer that. I think open book examination, so all of that is added as a part of the, and how to set such question paper. We are holding workshops after workshops. Because many times faculty say, sir, हम तो ऐसा ही पढ़ के आए हैं, तो हमको ऐसे क्वेश्चन पेपर सेट कैसे करना है यही पता नहीं है. तो हमने सैंपल क्वेश्चन पेपर हमारे वेबसाइट में डाले हुए हैं in different domains. By seeing them, you can start doing your own. And if you set a good question paper of that nature, please share with us. We will put it on our website. And it's an open source, so it's welcome for anyone. And as far as your first thing is concerned, I would not like to answer on this common platform. The reason being, you will quote it out of context and then start doing something. So that is a very innovative way. Some institutions in your area only have done it. If you want, I will give just broad hint, and I will leave it at that. The broad hint is every institution has its own financial resources, constraints, and all that. Challenges are there everywhere, including government institutions. Now, if you share honestly, transparently with all the faculty, staff members of your institution, and when the chips are down, we will do this way. When the chips are up, we will do this way. And you take all of them on board, then probably this problem gets solved. I have given enough hints.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Sahasrabudhe, I think many of us would know about many of these things. Dr. Sahasrabudhe, there has been a question that is there. And I'll ask somebody who's just keeping quiet so far. Dr. Anil, you have raised a question relating to, could Dr. Sahasrabudhe please unmute yourself and ask this, Dr. Anil, would you please unmute yourself and ask the question directly? Dr. Anil, if you are there.
Yes, Dr. Saxena, I'm here. I was just worried about my bandwidth, me being traveling now. Thank you.
No
I hope I'm audible and there is no interruption in my voice.
Right.
Well, thanks to Professor Sahasrabudhe and the whole team from AIMA doing this wonderful interaction meeting with the Vice-Chancellors Council. The question precisely I wanted to understand is when the HECI comes into existence slowly and steadily, how would it be interacting with the leadership of the institute so that the leadership gets empowered to move the institute towards excellence, particularly when I observe during my association with the SFIs, I do see that at the nascent stage, at the Vice-Chancellor's level, where we are all academicians who have looked at the academic nature of working and then trying to work towards excellence, there are some bottlenecks, particularly, I wouldn't name any of that specifically here, but implicitly it is all worded in the question that I have put to the chat as to how would the handholding be. There should be some kind of a process established between the regulatory bodies as well as with the leadership of the higher education institutions, which can empower the leadership ideally to take this across.
Professor Anand, I have 3 points on the basis of which I would like to explain this. Number one, AICTE has already got set of courses which are mandatory for getting regularized for technical education teachers. We have a set of 8 modules which are developed already. If you look at the curriculum of that starts from end to end, right from inception of being a faculty member, what are your roles and responsibilities, to how do you deal with examinations, how do you deal with curriculum setting, how do you deal with the interaction in the classes, how do you use technology, to even leadership of higher level when you become senior and HOD and all that. So this is one part. The second part is we often hold workshops, seminars, where direct interaction, understanding of each other, bringing in some of the experts to deal with this kind of webinar, seminar, where they will be able to interact with faculty and describe what needs to be done in what. It's like mentoring. The second one is direct mentoring, which we have started, which is excellent faculty members who are retired, either from even industry also, as well as from universities and institutions of excellence like IITs. They have been given this responsibility. We pay them honorarium, we give them the travel cost, and they will go to the institution once in a month, 2-3 days, and interact with faculty and actually charge them up. See, they are the role models. Unless the faculty who are selected to do this job are not the role models, probably you will not be able to succeed. So we have done this as well. The third part is in terms of all variety of support, whether it is for innovation, for research, for variety of activities that the institutions are doing. If you keep on encouraging, there will be a inert, whatever philosophy of not doing something to doing something. Activity will start emerging from the institutions, and then naturally there is a sort of competition also. There is a collaboration also. All these things put together, we can start moving towards excellence. Excellence is not a very shortcut. You have to struggle for that. It takes time. Some of the best institutions, they struggle. Someone asked in the first 5 years why NAC accreditation is not there. I was a part of IIT Guwahati. First 10 years, it was not resembling like an IIT, but it was an IIT and degrees were awarded as IIT degrees. But after 15 years, 20 years, now after 25 years, it is in the top 50 colleges or universities in the world amongst the top 50 years institutions. Those institutions which were started in the last 50 years, 5 decades, out of them, this stands among the top 50. We are not in the top 100 amongst all the institutions of the world, but within the institutions which were started recently, we have made a mark, but it did not come so easily. It took 20-25 years, and therefore I think excellence, you have to struggle both in terms of investment of time, money, your own commitment, passion. All these facets are important, and creation of that is not a very easy task actually. So as I said, role models, you send people who will inspire those faculty members there. This is the only way forward for excellence in all the institutions.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Sahasrabudhe. There is a last question.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Dr. Saxena, may I ask speak to?
Yeah, Dr. Bansal, please go ahead. Yeah, Dr. Bansal.
Thank you so very much, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Dr. Sahasrabudhe, it's always a treat to listen to your words of wisdom, and I fully endorse whatever you have said. Humans cannot be replaced by machines and vice versa, and online definitely is not going to be the normal. I am strong belief that it's going to be blended maybe in the future, but face-to-face learning cannot be changed. I am incidentally the chairperson of evaluation reforms also the university also you just spoke about, and today incidentally I have a presentation to give to the faculty members about evaluation reforms, all the mandates which we have mentioned. I have only simple queries, sir. Like this year was a different year altogether, and we have a lot of things where calendar is changed. Are we coming out with some calendar to compensate all the the time loss and everything which has happened in the past? For example, in number of universities, including ours, we have taken admission till last week of December as per the mandate of UGC. So are we coming out with some new calendar for education institutions this time?
Yeah, certainly yes, but we cannot compress it and bring online like in the past within 1 year. We may require 2 years possibly. So whatever loss is happened is about 4 to 5 months minimum, somewhere 6 months also. So we may compress to get over it about 2 to 2.5 months this year, another 2.5 months next year, and by 2022, hopefully we will be like in the past. That is the hope actually.
Cascading effect will be definitely there, but you are, planning to come out with some calendar. Right. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, and we'll have to close now because I think it's almost about on time. We're running about a few minutes behind. Thank you very much, Dr. Sahasrabudhe. It has been wonderful interacting with you. There have been so many questions that are coming in, sir.
Saxena ji, I was noting some of them, but I was speaking, therefore I have not read all of them. If the screenshot of this is taken and shared with me, I would be happy to briefly answer them and send it back to Raj, and Raj in turn can send it to all the attendees.
Yes, sir.
That would be wonderful.
Happy to. Soumya, you can take this.
I am one who believes in answering all the mails. So I think if I was not speaking and someone else was speaking, I would have answered also some of them here itself.
Sir, all of us can vouch for that. You are meticulous in responding to the queries.
Right.
I am also getting this prompt reply of his email.
Yeah.
Right. No, we'll do that, Dr. Sahasrabudhe. That's been very kind of you, and I think it's the best form of interacting with the regulator and understanding, what is the next step forward. I wouldn't really call Dr. Sahasrabudhe as a regular. I think he's a part of us, and he's playing that kind of a role. That's a very different part. And that's what makes him so very different. He understands the institution, he understands the education, he understands, what it takes to build an institution, what are the pains that each one of us go through to make an institution. Having done that, all that well, and having been one of the outstanding teacher, which I've seen him as an institution builder from my day that at NMIMS, and having known him for not really a long time period, I think Dr. Sahasrabudhe, it's been wonderful hearing you. On behalf of the Vice-Chancellors Council, I take this opportunity of thanking you from the core of my heart, from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure that I'm echoing each one of yours kind of sentiments when we say we are privileged to have you with us this morning and to listen to you, your wonderful words. Thank you very much, Dr. Sahasrabudhe.
Thank you.
Raj?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Saxena ji and Raj and all others. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.